everybody, welcome back to the Very Life. Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy, American expat who is living in Korea. And today, for the few people that watched, what we're going to end up doing is taking a look at Tinkercad and making a Creality K2 Plus nozzle brush. So for those of you who don't know, when you have 3D printing and basically it's like plastic thread or filament that is going through a hot end where it's basically a tube, and then you have a heater, it melts the plastic and then it craps it out into a design layer by layer. Usually 0.2 is the standard, but you can go down pretty low and you can make some pretty incredible things. I mean, I've been printing up a storm since I got my Creality K2 Plus, and getting all the tools and stuff that you need is part of that. I printed out a riser for my K2 Plus. I also printed out a number of other things, tool holders, racks, just having a blast with it. I mean, I'm retired. I gotta do something. So anyway, what I found out is that I needed a nozzle brush. Now, way back in the day when you used to do 3D printing, you would have brass nozzles and you would have a brass brush to brush that nozzle because it would get up into the hundreds of Celsius degrees. Like, for example, printing something out now that's 220 degrees Celsius because I'm using PETG. But with that, you do get some remnants or some blobs of that filament material on the nozzle, and you need to clean that off. Well, back in the day, the brass stuff was pretty good, the brass brushes, but now we have like silicone socks on the hot end of the nozzle, and there's only a little bit of the nozzle. And what I found out is that, like with the K2 Plus, it'll automatically go and it will clean itself onto, like what we see here. Let's see if we can get this. That is a silicone brush. It's a nozzle wipe, and all of that is silicone. So what you end up doing is that when the nozzle is heated up and it loosens up that filament, the machine will automatically go to where this is located in the back, and it'll rub the nozzle on there and clean it off. Really great system, but the problem is that it doesn't always work. So we're going to get rid of the music there, but it doesn't always work well. It works well for the most part, but I like keeping my stuff clean. It's just the way I am, and I've run into some instances where I had some blobs or dingleberries, popping down and hanging down and interfering with the print, and not to where the print failed, but just where it's like, well, I really don't want the nozzle to come in contact with the blob that fell onto the print. So with that, I decided, way back in the day, they used the brass nozzles. So I wanted to make and try to find a silicone nozzle brush, but they don't make them. At least I couldn't find any. So what we're going to end up doing is going over here and this is Tinkercad. Tinkercad is like the CAD program for dummies. So and I'm putting that lightly because there are some incredible things that you can do on Tinkercad. And I'm just this is kind of my speed. I'm, put box and circle on box and square and things like that. So anyway, this is what I came up with. And we're going to take a look at this. This is the little thing that I ended up making. And basically what we ended up having is I took a shape and I took some calipers and I got some measurements of this little silicone nozzle wipe pad thing that is on the Creality K2 Plus. And since I have a couple of these, I'm going to use one of these as a brush. But trying to get my fat fingers close to the nozzle and rubbing it off like this, I ended up burning my fingers. So I said, you know what? I need to make a brush holder. So that's what this is. And so basically this is a bunch of different objects. I countersunk some of this in here so you can kind of see some of the detail. It looks kind of cool, and basically it just ends up being like a cylinder that's brought up, and what we'll end up doing is just kind of redoing this and kind of show you the workflow that I ended up doing. So with that being said, and why am I doing this? Because I'm bored, and I'm retired here in Korea and waiting for lunch, and we're going to go out a little bit later, so I figured I better do this now. So anyway, we got a bunch of different options here on the right-hand side. You have your work plane. In other words, where is it? Actually, it says work plane. There is our work plane. I had it all cattywampus and everything. So that is our work plane, and what I did is ended up making it the same size as the bed of my K2 Plus. So when you go down here to the bottom right and you see settings down here where it says workplace measurements, you can click that and you can change the background color to whatever you want, show shadows, show the grid, which is important. All of this is stock. Zoom speed, all of that is stock, but when you get down here to the width and the length, what I ended up doing is putting in the measurements of the K2 Plus for the X and Y axis. So it's 350 by 350, and then of course it goes up to 350 on the Z axis. So we're going to go ahead and make that default. We'll close the settings and boom. So if you want to make something that will fit onto the build plate of your 3D printer or laser engraver or whatever thing that you have, you can set that, and it becomes very useful when making parts and pieces and so on and so forth. So let's get into making this little brush. First thing I ended up doing is clicking onto the cylinder, and you notice how it's highlighted in like a blue. We're just going to, boom, hit that there, and let's zoom in and we'll see what happens. So when we click these white squares and we click it, what we can end up doing is changing, and let's say we want to make it 8, and we click on that one and we want to make that 8, and then now we want to do, we want to do that one 8, and the top, why is this all cattywampus? It's free. So, and even why is that doing that? 8, 8, 8, 8. That doesn't really look like a circle, does it? That is just odd. Let's do this again. Okay. So we'll put 8, and you don't have to hit enter. You can just click on this other one, and we'll just put 8. And there we have our circle. So what we can end up doing here is we can adjust this. So these little black squares, what we can end up doing is pulling this, and we can put it in whatever direction we want. Same thing with this side here, and we can manipulate the shape. If we do Control Z, we'll go back to our cylinder shape, and this square up here, it ends up being 20. So 20 millimeters high, and if you can either drag it up and down, or you could go ahead and enter in the measurement. So we're going to go ahead and enter in 85. We'll hit enter, and there is our thing. Yeah. Now, the other thing that we could end up doing over here in this box on the right, we can change the color if we wanted. Let's do whatever color we want. Let's make it green because I'm just feeling kind of green today. You can increase the number of sides. So as you can see there, if we go like this, you can see it ends up with 12 sides. So you can get kind of a more of a geometric shape, but if you crank it all the way to the end, you get 128. So it's more of a cylinder with smoother sides, and then you could end up doing some beveling. So you can see we could play with that. If you wanted a little bit of, just something different. Maybe you don't want such a sharp edge or an abrupt cut off like we do here. As far as segments, I'm not really sure what segments does. So yeah, if you know, your job is to put that in the comments section down below, because I have no clue. So anyway, the other thing we could end up doing is we could rotate this. So if we go down here to the bottom and we hover over the little arrow thing that we have, what we can end up doing is clicking that, and we can rotate this in increments of 5 degrees as long as we stay within that circle. If we go outside of the circle, then we can go by individual and set that to say if we need it to be like 63 degrees and we rotate it, we could do that. But we're just going to leave it as it is. The other thing you could end up doing, you'll notice up here that we have the same thing, and we could rotate our item as such in 5 degree increments, and or you could just do it as individual degrees, which is kind of neat. So we'll just leave that at 0. So you can rotate this, and if you wanted to take it off of the build plate, so if you wanted to lift this up, what you could do is just click the item and it will travel X, Y, and Z on the work plane. But if we wanted to bring it up, that's where this circle comes, or that little black arrow comes into play. So we can lift this up, and it'll actually show you, if you look down on the bottom, how many increments of millimeters that it's up above the build plate. Now, if we go back down to the bottom right, we see that we have a snap grid. And if we click on that, we have some options. So everywhere 0.1 up to 5, and usually the normal is 1 millimeter. So if we move this, it will go in increments of whatever is set by that snap grid. So in this case, it's set in 1 millimeter increments, so we can, kind of go up and down. It gives you kind of a reference point of how to move things and things like that. If you want to get really detailed, you can set it to 0.1 millimeters. And yeah, it's kind of, you can get pretty accurate with this thing. Let's say that you want to put it back down onto the build plate. There's a couple of ways that we can do this. We can grab that arrow, left click and drag, and we can go down. But now it's down below the work plane, and we don't want that. So we can either raise it back up, and you can try to look and get it perfect on there. But another way to do this is just go ahead and hit the D key, the delta, and it will place that item down onto the work plane. So if we go down below the build, the work plane that we see there, if we hit D, it'll put it onto the top. So you can reorient these things, and if you screw something up, there's ways to get around it. And of course, you could always do the undo. So you have an undo here at the top left, and then you have a redo. You also have a trash can. You have a duplicate, so you can duplicate the item that you have. So example, if I do that and I pull it off to the side, I now have 2 of these things. So yeah, you can do and make as many as you want. If I hit the delete key, it'll go away. We also have a copy and paste function as well. So now that we've gone over that, some other things we have since we're up on this top toolbar is we have, so like, let's duplicate this. I'll just bring this over here. Now let's just make this a different color, just to be different. And we'll do that. And let's say for whatever reason we want to join these 2 things together because we're making something, and that's going to be the final product right there. But we want to join these 2 things together. We want to group them together so that they're one piece. So I can click on one, hold shift, click on the other one, and now they're all grouped together. Or what I could end up doing is just holding down my left mouse key, mouse button, and drag out that square, and whatever that square touches, it will select everything that is within that square. So if we go up to the top, we notice on the top right, we have group, and there are keyboard commands. You could use Control-G to do this, but if I hit this, and what it'll do is it will make this shape all one item. So in other words, we could do whatever we want with that. Let's go ahead and we'll undo that. And let's go back. Let's go ahead and we'll group it again. And let's say I'm doing some work and I need to, I'm going to drag this out, and it's like, oh, wait a second, I don't want to do that. I want to shorten this cross piece here, but I don't want to mess with the dimensions as this being all of one piece. So basically what we end up doing is that if I move this, we notice how it changes the shape of our original piece here. But I want to keep that the way it was. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to hit that, and we can go back and either do the Control-Z, or if we have both of these grouped together, what we can end up doing is selecting them and go back up to the top, and we can go to ungroup. So that's Control-Shift-G. And then we could go ahead, click somewhere else, and then we could move this stuff around, make whatever adjustments we wanted. And if we wanted to move that, so pretty cool little toy that we got here. And you could end up kind of doing some stuff. So let's get back to making the brush. And matter of fact, that looks like a cool little piece there. I think we will incorporate that into our brush. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll rotate this up. And then we will rotate this around to 90 degrees. And we'll bring this up here. And we'll zoom in. I've got a little trackpad, or you could use the wheel button on your mouse. And we want to do something like this. But the problem that we're having is that trying to adjust this red piece, you know, I can use some arrow keys, but it goes in increments of 1. There's an easier way to align this together. So let's select both of these. And we go up to the top right where it says align. You could also hit the L key. And now when we click the green, because we want it centered on these dimensions here, it'll kind of give you a little preview of where it's going to go. Notice that little orange line as we kind of move this around to the different spots. It'll highlight and show you where it will be centered depending on that position. So we're going to center it on the center of our cylinder like that. And actually, that came out pretty damn good. So not bad. Not bad at all. So this might end up working out better than we did before. So, yep, that works out good. So now what we're going to end up doing is we'll just kind of bring, oops, we don't want to do that. We just want to click the red part and bring that up. And we're going to change some of the dimensions on this, because the dimensions that we have is that it's basically, we're seeing that it's 8 millimeters thick. So we're going to make that, I don't know, let's just make it 5. And we could center that again if we wanted to. Well, let's just leave it at 8, just because it looks cool. And now what we can end up doing is, instead of 25, I did some measurements with some calipers on this. And the length of this is, it's not 37, it's 11.9. So let's just make this, I don't know, 14. We'll do that. And then the dimension here, as far as the other dimension of the little silicone sock, we're going to make that, well, actually, what is that going to be? 11.9, so let's make this, I don't know, 13. We'll just kind of do that. And then what we can end up doing is just kind of moving this up. And we're not too concerned, because what we can end up doing now is bringing this, highlighting both of these. We go to the top right and align, click on the green, because that's how we're going to center it. And there, and that is our piece. So now what we can end up doing is taking this, and we could group it together. So we select both of them, and we're going to hit group or Control G. It's going to go ahead and make it as such. And then what we could end up doing, let's just go ahead and rotate this whole thing down. We'll hit the D key to bring it down to the plate. And now you know why my work plane was all cattywampus. And now what we're going to end up doing is we're going to do the insert for our silicone sock, or the silicone nozzle brush thing that we have. So that looks kind of good. And actually, what I think we could do, let's go ahead and we'll take this down and we'll make it 6. I think that'll look a lot better. Okay. And now what we want to do is the inset, we want to carve out a little area for our silicone sock. So we're going to go over here to the right-hand side, and we're going to go to the box that looks like it's got some stripes on it. And that is so you can create a hole. Now we can do this. We also have the cylinder off to the side where we could make a hole, and we could set in our dimensions there. So basically what we end up with, the dimensions of our little sock are 17.2 millimeters by, what was it, 11.9. I could probably just put 12. Yeah, let's just put 12. I don't know why I'm getting so crazy on this. And then we could rotate this around. Oops. And we find out that now we're going to have to make this a little bit bigger. So now we're going to have to go back and we'll click on our item again. We'll hit the ungroup, and we'll select our red here. And what we'll end up doing is we'll make this a little bit bigger. We'll just kind of use the square for the sock and the placement, and we'll kind of drag this side out, and then we'll drag this side out. And that's kind of an interesting thing. If you notice, these little black dots, I can adjust the length, but it won't mess with the width. Okay, same thing on this. It'll adjust the width if I click and drag this way, but it will only increase the size on that one side. So that's another way of manipulating that. So, okay, let's see. What do we want? We want to be able to go down, and you can actually see how it's kind of hard to see on that. So what you can end up doing is if you click on the red item and you hit T, you'll get a little bit of a translucent look or transparent look to the item, and we can see our hole coming there. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to put in the measurements, which I forgot to get from my silicone sock, because we want it inset within that piece. So we're just going to get our calipers here, hit 0, and it is going to be 2.25 millimeters. So what we can end up doing is adjusting that to be 2.2. We'll put 2.28. Well, 2.225. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And then what we'll end up doing is raising that up. So now what we can end up doing is we can see that we've got a little bit of an inset on this. And then what we can end up doing is selecting both of those, and we will align those on the center there and the center there. And now, and if we click on our item again, we can hit T, and we can get kind of a look on how that's going to be. Now, another way that we can end up doing is we could just click off of this. We can click the hole that we have for the inset for our nozzle wipe, and we can use some arrow keys. And this is going, the number of clicks or the distance that it's going to get per click on your arrow keys will be directly related to the snap grid down here on the bottom right here. So we've currently got it set to 1 millimeter. And so let's say I want to bring this down because I don't want it big and fat. So each little left and right is 1 millimeter. And then we could click this and we can get it basically, close enough for government work. And we can see that inset. If we click it again, we'll go to transparent, and we can see the distance for that inset, which is pretty good. And what I actually want to do is I'll go down and I'll set that to, I don't want it off, I want it on 1 millimeter increments. And we'll just go down here so that it's just barely touching. I'm sorry if I'm making y'all sick. But if I go like that, it's going to have that right up there. So I want to go up just one more click, boom. And so that way we've got enough room to where this silicone nozzle brush insert thing, wipe thing, will be able to fit within this area here. So the first thing we're going to end up doing is we'll just highlight both of those. We'll go ahead and center them again. And we should be good to go. So, and now what we can end up doing is we can select both of these and we can group all of these, just those two pieces there. So now, and I'll hit the T, and now we've got a pretty cool insert for our brush. Now we notice that we got a little bit of green in there, so what we can do, since this is highlighted, we can hit the left arrow key, and in increments of 0.1 millimeter, we can do it one arrow at a time, or if we hold shift, it'll do like 5 of those at a time. So, You can see where it's green, and as soon as the green's gone, I'm happy, and there we go. The other thing we might want to end up doing is putting this green cylinder into the center of this item. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of grab both of those. We'll go down here and we will center that. And so now that's at the center and we're good to go. So there it is, folks. And the one last step is we can select everything. We'll group that together and it will come out, and there is our new and improved nozzle wipe system. So let's take a look at that and compare it to this other one that I did a little while ago and see how they compare. We'll go ahead and hit D and put that down. And now you can tell me, which one do you like better? So this one's more round, kind of about the same diameter as you would have like a regular pen. This one has got, it's kind of smushed down a little bit. This one that I ended up making kind of went for more of a, like a 12-sided thing. And then I put like a circle on top of the cylinder that we had, so you can see that there. And if I was going to print this would probably be put on the face here. So with this one, you could put it on the face of your print bed and it would print up from there. So you would need to have some supports, automatic supports to go there, or what you could end up doing, it'd probably be the way I would print it out. You don't want to print it out like this, because on the sides here, notice how there's this unsupported edge, and it's not flat with the build plate area. You would have to have supports that would populate that, and that would probably mar the surface of the product, so I wouldn't set it up on the build plate like that. So what I would end up doing is we would rotate this up like so, and we'll rotate this one up too, why not? And then we'll hit D, select that and hit D. And so that's how I would end up printing that on the build plate. So with this one here, actually, I kind of like that. It's kind of more, it's softer. It's not as blocky and chunky as this one. And it's kind of, I think I like the green one better. So now the question is, now that we've made our little brush, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to export that out of Tinkercad, save it as an STL file, and then we can go print it out and see how that works. So let's go back to Tinkercad. Excuse me. And since we're not going to use the blue one, because I like this one a lot better, I just think that's cool. We'll make sure that the whole thing is selected. And if we go to the top right, you have import and you have export or send to. You can send with people and apps. And I wonder if you could send it to, printables, Thingiverse. Oh, My Mini Factory. That's kind of cool. This is the first time ever clicking that. Picture of your design. So that's kind of cool. But we can export this. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking this, and we're going to click on the STL for 3D printing. Now, whatever you make here on Tinkercad, you could also save it as an OBJ file or the GLB file, or if you're laser cutting, you could save it as a .svg file as well. Or if you wanted to, you could put it into Fusion 360 and you could play with it even more, but I'm not smart on that. So we're just going to go with the STL, and it's going to get ready, and I went ahead and downloaded that. And the download is in progress, and there is our file, which is right there. So yeah, I got a little picture of me posing. But yeah, what we could end up doing is taking that and then putting that into our Creality software. And we just, as you can see, or can you see, yeah, this is my Creality K2 Plus, and it just finished printing out a spool kind of cover for cardboard spools. So as you can see there, that I finished up with the second one. So what we'll end up doing here So let's go ahead and we'll do new project. And now what we can end up doing is we can go back to this and we'll drag our brush into Creality. And there is our item. And if we go close into there, you can see that there is the cutout. And yeah, there it is. So now what we could end up doing is taking this, since it's highlighted, and let's say we want to print this in Hyper PLA, which I think that's what we have. We could print it out at 0.12, and that's the layer height, that's the speed. I think everything's good. We could do that at 15% with a gyroid pattern, which is, I don't know, that's the one I like. I think all of this is good. If we go to excuse me, if we go to supports, we'll enable the supports, and we will do tree, and we will do slim, and no, I don't want to do that. On the build plate only, and I think that's all we need to do. Oh, and the other thing, it has a brim type. It should automatically, so if we go ahead and hit slice, there it is. So we'll put a little brim to help the adhesion of that. So, and there is our little support system that we have there. So it could be interesting. Let's go back to the supports and see what it goes for the default tree. We'll slice this. And that's kind of the same thing. We get a little bit more coverage there versus the slim. And if we go over here to the left, we see that this is 3.81 grams. And take about 54 minutes to print this. If we went with the tree slim, excuse me. No, we're not going to do that. And instead of 3.81, it's still 3.81. But we see that there's a little bit of a lack of coverage there. So I think with this, I'm just going to go to default, and we will reslice this. And notice how we've got some more coverage there. So that would give us a little bit more. The other thing we could end up doing is also looking back, go back to the normal default for the type of support, and we'll see what that looks like. And we got nothing there. Interesting. So it just prints that in midair. I don't know if I like that. Let's see if we do grid. What does that do? No. Interesting. Let's just do tree auto, and we could do, let's see what the strong ends up doing. See how that looks. Okay, so we got that. It's just a little bit thicker on that. So let's change it to tree hybrid. And I'm just kind of playing with this. Tree hybrid, I don't really notice much of a difference there, honestly. And what's the other one we have? Organic. So we'll try that. That's got some good coverage in there as well. So between the organic and the default, no. Slim? No. No, I don't want that. Strong. I don't know if I like that. Maybe the organic is the way to go, because we get that dark green in there. So yeah, let's just play with that and see what happens. And that will give us a total print time at, what was that, 0.12. It'll be 54 minutes and 46 seconds is what it comes out to. But yeah, if we could end up printing our little brush and we could have our inset, and life would be good. So we're going to do that and hit that a little bit later. So anyway, that's what we end up having, making a little Creality silicone nozzle wipe handle holder. So that way, the little OCD in me, when I like keeping my machine clean, I've seen people where there's all kinds of crap on the inside of the machine, and that just kind of bugs me. So, and the same thing on the nozzle end of the K2 Plus is definitely got to keep that thing clean. It just makes me feel better because if you have remnants or of filament and blobs that are on the nozzle and it starts, something could happen and attach, and I don't know. I'm just kind of still nervous about 3D printing since this is my first personally owned 3D printer. So we're going to keep this thing nice and clean and kind of go that route. So anyway, that's what we got going on. A lot of stuff you can do in Tinkercad, and I've done a lot of stuff on that with, I don't know, take a look at some of the junk that I've ended up playing around with to kind of show you what I've been doing. So let's go back, and here's my Tinkercad. Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, on Tinkercad, and we just made our silicone brush that we did there. This is a paper holder that I downloaded from another user, and so I'm going to be taking a look at that. This is an airbrush stand that I ended up doing. This is an improved piece for the K2 Plus. So where the Bowden tube goes into the extruder, there wasn't a lot of support at the top of that, so that tube was bent off to the side. It was causing some problems, and as you can see on this little model here, it didn't have that part on the top there. So I added that little part that extended up to give it some more support, and we did that. The other thing I ended up doing is a 17 millimeter paintbrush bottle rack. So when I do some printing, what I ended up doing, and this is the little piece that we have here, and I did some fuzzy skin on that. And so basically what ends up happening is that this is the one piece and where you can store your 17 millimeter paints. Now the cool thing about this is you'll notice, see that little black lip right up in there? That can hold that paint almost upside down. Well, it does. Eventually it'll fall out. But there's a little bit of a lip that corresponds with the lip on this edge. So when it's sitting straight, because I was worried about, well, if this is angled and I tried to angle it like this, I couldn't get the right angles that I wanted because, again, I'm a dummy at Tinkercad. So I said, well, I'm just going to print this, and then the way this bottle is made, I'll just put that lip that you can see right there, and that printed out pretty good. So when you put that in there, it holds. I thought that was cool. Doesn't take much to amaze me. So, yeah. So I ended up doing a 42 each. It holds that. I also have a couple of feet on there. I played around with a bunch of that. I did some hinges, redid part of a riser because I liked parts of one and then part of another, and then I just kind of smashed them together. I did a funnel over here, which was, that's actually a funnel for my protein bottle drink. My protein bottle, I didn't have a funnel the size that I needed to put my protein powder in there because they're all super small, so I made a big one and it ended up working. Paintbrush holder, I did a 21. I did another one here, and then I have one that's like a 40. K2 Plus shelf holder. That's kind of a remix of another K2 tool holder that I expanded out and made bigger. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, a lot of different stuff that you can do in Tinkercad. You could do circuits, you could do code blocks. And if you look at the different connection or the different items and collections that they have on here, it can get pretty wild. So let's just go to the gallery and just kind of show you what they got going on. You can make flexies, and people post this stuff. And you have to give, look at that. Somebody made an egg beater. That is insane. An egg beater that actually works, the old-fashioned egg beater stuff. So yeah, you can do some pretty amazing things. A V8 engine, SimLab. You can do a lot of functional things. You can do a lot of decorations. Chain ring sprocket gear. Holy crow. So yeah, drivetrain. I mean, it is just kind of amazing floor lamp challenge and making all this stuff. So yeah, there's some super smart people on here that make some pretty detailed prints and functional items, which is just incredible. When you see some of the stuff that's like that. So, and a lot of artsy stuff and a lot of whatever. But it's really cool that you can go through here and do some functioning stuff with Tinkercad. You can make a lot of cool things that actually work. You can do a lot of art, and yeah, it never ends. It never ends with Tinkercad. And I just need to get smart with Tinkercad. So anyway, that's what we end up having, is playing around, making a Creality K2 Plus nozzle brush holder for the little silicone wiper nozzle thing that they included to help me keep my nozzle clean. And that's important. Cleanliness is next to godliness, or at least it keeps it clean. So anyway, I thought that'd be kind of fun to be able to show you how I, in the dummy, need a Tinkercad for Dummy, how I can make simple tools. I don't know if I'd be able to survive the apocalypse, but I can make a few things on Tinkercad. But then again, in the apocalypse, I think my military training and law enforcement background would become way more useful. So, than doing Tinkercad. But you never know. We might have both in the apocalypse. And we'll see how that goes with the ongoing trade wars. The trade wars. Whoa. Wow. So anyway, that's what we got going on. And this is the closing the summary. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this on Facebook, go to YouTube, go to The Varied Life, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And then there's also an email address, official thevariedlife@gmail.com. I've answered every single person that has emailed me, even the crazy ones, which most of you and I are. We're part of that group. But if you really want to do me a solid, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the description box down below for that. And these people over here, they're the awesome people that have bought me coffees. And I just got the email notification that I got like 3 or 4 more that have bought me coffees. So I have been neglecting my duties of updating this list, but I want to make one that has like a scrolling thing with their names on it. And yeah, I'm just kind of behind. The other thing we end up having is I'm going to be doing a review of a product, and let's see if we can, what I want to do is I want to take a look at, where is the camera stuff? The camera whoosies. I'm not sure. There it is. So if you look up there in the top left-hand corner, what you end up seeing is that where it says YouTube, The Varied Life, and subscribers, and views, and all that stuff with the clock. That is something that I'm going to be reviewing, and a future which is going to come out here pretty soon. I'm doing the final editing on that, and it is kind of an interactive. It's a kind of like a bitmap type of picture frame, artist graphic. Of course, you have socials, and you could also have stock tickers on there, weather, time, the whole 9 yards. When I kid you, there are thousands and thousands of things that you can put on that with using your phone app. And I'll tell you, it's the Pixo 64. Yeah, and you can even create your own pixel art on that. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing a review of that product because they sent it to me and said, hey, review it. Say whatever you want. And so I'm going to review it, and I'm going to say whatever I want and tell you what I think about it. So be sure to hang in for that. So that's going to be it for today. Steve leaving you off, saying goodbye from the wonderful land of the morning calm here in Korea. And have a great weekend, folks. Honestly, have a great weekend. Relax. Do something for yourself. Do something for your significant other. And breathe. Just go have some fun. It's no fun if you don't have fun. All right. So with that being said, we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Now I got to print that thing out.